Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming at you on a Thursday and a drizzly day in the capital city. So glad you're along for the next 3 hours of 580 Sports Talk. We're going until 5 o'clock today. We've got Lewis Toyota high school basketball games of the week to bring you from the Capital City Classic. But until then, 3 hours of Sports Talk with yours truly, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis alongside. Brennan Drzezinski's on the road. He's a rambling man trying to make a living and doing the best he can, making the long haul drive west to Hays, Kansas, Hays, America, for Washburn basketball tonight. He'll join us in the 4 o'clock hour from courtside at Gross Memorial Coliseum. That's when I'm going to duck out to Viking Gymnasium at Seaman High School for first round action of the Capital City Classic, which we're going to be bringing you tonight throughout the evening right here on 580 WIBW. So you'll hear from the whole crew today, but to start things off, it's me and it's Spencer and it's all of you. And we appreciate you listening, whether you're tuning in on 580 WIBW, the big AM stick, FM 104.9 in the capital city and surrounding areas, online worldwide at 580WIBW.com or via the YouTube stream. Hi, folks. We are on YouTube today and every day. Find our channel 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. And join us in the comments. We have a live chat. It runs throughout the program. We love hearing from our listeners and interacting with you throughout the show. Our guy Mark caught the Allman Brothers reference I was making there at the very top. So we're on our toes today. That makes me feel good about the listening audience. We're on our toes. Somebody caught what I was going for there.
Not only did they catch it, but they put it in a comment form, so we weren't an hour long in the show thinking are we even on YouTube?
Yeah, we did. Yesterday we were like, is this thing even working? Like, are we?
Someone did text us though and say, "Are you guys not on YouTube?" And that really confused me
because threw us off bad.
Because I was like, I definitely see it on YouTube. I went and checked, and then I was like, oh, well, maybe somebody just had the wrong YouTube link up.
But the listeners are on their toes today, and we appreciate you again being along. However you're consuming the show, we're glad you're hanging out with us on this Thursday. Lots to get to today. We are jam-packed on today's edition of 580 Sports Talk. We've got guests each hour for you. Rick Peterson of TopSports.News is going to join us at the bottom of this hour. We're going to do our Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound, preview the Capital City Classic games tonight, and take a look at what else is going on in the area. Rick Peterson of TopSports.News joining us bottom of this hour. Top of the 3 o'clock hour at 3:10. Mitch Holthus, voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, so grateful that he is flexible with his time for us as our show times have kind of moved around the last couple of Thursdays. Mitch has agreed to jump on with us at 3:10 this afternoon. We're going to get the thoughts of the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs as he prepares for the AFC Championship game on Sunday. That's coming up at 3:10. We've got more Chiefs audio at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. Coordinator spoke today. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes spoke today. Lots to get to there. We will hear from some principal members of the Chiefs staff, playing and coaching staff, coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. And at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, CJ Moore will join us for a Big 12 basketball breakdown. CJ Moore covers college basketball for The Athletic, and we'll have plenty to talk about a Big 12 race that is already wild and woolly. We will get CJ's thoughts. He'll join us at the bottom of the hour. Of course, your interaction is always welcome, whether it's in the YouTube live chat or whether it's via the text line 785-272-9429. Like I said, we're jam-packed with guests today. Rick Peterson, bottom of this hour. Mitch Holthus, top of the 3 o'clock hour. CJ Moore, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We'll do What Is Wrong With You at 4:25 as always. We'll do headlines to start the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk about K-State, Iowa State last night. I don't say this lightly. That was one of the worst officiated games that I've ever witnessed, and maybe the least enjoyable college basketball viewing experience of my entire life. I don't know that I've ever hated watching a college basketball game as much as I hated watching last night's Kansas State, Iowa State game, for reasons that had very little to do with how competitive the contest was, which it was throughout. The fact that Iowa State won that game by 11 is not reflective of how tight that game was coming down to the wire. That game took 2.5 hours. They had a 2.5 hour college basketball game. Spencer, is there any planet on which there should ever be a 40-minute regulation college basketball game that takes 2.5 hours to play?
No.
Well, friend, I know you're new to the area. Welcome to the Jerry Pollard Show. That's what that was last night. That was the Jerry Pollard Show, the full Jerry Pollard experience. I've got some words for Jerry Pollard, and I got some words for those con artists in the Iowa State backcourt who play a brand of basketball that I utterly despise. I've got some criticism of Kansas State, too, because they should have won that game. I mean, we'll talk about the actual basketball stuff. K-State should have won that basketball game. And could have won that basketball game. And they've got a couple of weaknesses that they really do have to tighten up if they're going to continue to hang around the top of the Big 12 standings. And those were exposed last night. But we will get there in the 3 o'clock hour. But I want to start today with the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs and the Ravens, we are 1 day closer to the 6th consecutive AFC Championship game, which features the Kansas City Chiefs. It'll be the first of the 6 played on the road as the Chiefs go to Baltimore. And I had this thought. I've had this thought throughout the week, and I wanted to flesh this out, Spencer, with your help, but also with the help of our listeners. I'm talking about our long-suffering, dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore, red glasses, vanity license plate, flag-waving Chiefs fans out there. I had this thought because I remembered something that our former co-host around these parts, Jake LeBon, used to say going into and really throughout this 2023 season, that anything less than the AFC Championship game, than being in this game, feels like a failure as long as Patrick Mahomes is in his prime as a starting quarterback.
I would agree with that.
That was Jake's baseline. And Jake, a longer suffering Chiefs fan than either of us, and as long suffering as many of you are listening, said that getting to the AFC Championship game is the expectation. And left unsaid but implied in saying that is that stuff can happen in an AFC Championship game and stuff can happen in a Super Bowl. We were talking earlier this week. The best Chiefs team of the Mahomes era, I firmly believe, was the 2020 team. And they didn't win the Super Bowl because they ended up going into the Super Bowl with a patchwork offensive line, and they just got bullied up front for 60 minutes and lost to the greatest winner to ever play the quarterback position in Tom Brady, which there's no shame in that. But that was the best team. To me, like tip to tail, that was the best Chiefs team of this run, and it didn't win the Super Bowl. So stuff can happen in these. The longer you go into these win or go home situations, stuff can happen. But getting here, giving yourself an opportunity to win a conference championship, to hear Jake tell it, that's the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum that the Chiefs should expect to accomplish while Patrick Mahomes is in his prime as a quarterback. And I largely agree with that. I largely feel like that is fair to say if we've got the best player in the world in his prime, we ought to be gunning for the conference championship game. Do you happen to know offhand how many times Tom Brady took his team to a conference championship game, Spencer? Do you know that number off the top of your head?
Well, I know he did it 8 straight, so I'm going to say 12.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It was 13 times. 14 when you count the one he went to as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. 14.
That was close.
Yeah, 14 conference championship games. Good guess. 14 conference championship games. That's going to be hard to top. But Mahomes has done it 6 times in 6 years. Like he's got a real chance to break that record. Because I don't know if you'll believe this, no quarterback's ever played in more conference championship games than Tom Brady. So when you've got the guy, when you've got the GOAT at quarterback, that is the expectation, the conference championship game. But with that thought came this thought. Because the Chiefs have not been underdogs in a conference championship game since that 2018 conference title game. And I'm going to go double check to make sure that is true. I would expect that it was. that even though the Chiefs were the home team in that game, no, check that. They went off as favorites that day, according to Pro Football Reference. I'll be darned. They went off as favorites in that game. They were favored by 3 points. So this is the first time, actually, that the Chiefs have been underdogs in this scenario. So is this a house money scenario for the Chiefs? Do you feel like even if they don't win on Sunday, that this season can still be looked back upon as successful? Because I would think in a scenario where you have to go on the road, where you are not the favorite in the conference championship game, if you lose that game as the underdog, you probably, in most cases, walk away from that game and that season thinking, you know what, we maxed out. We did what we could. And given the run of form for the Chiefs, the way that they played for the better part of this 2023 season, there were times they did not have the look or the feel of a team that was even going to get here.
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, we remember your comments and your texts into this program, not yours, Spencer. I'm talking to the, the listener here. We remember your frustration and the things that you said about this team and frankly, the things that we've said behind our microphone about this Chiefs team at their most frustrating this season. But at the same time, on paper, this is the Chiefs team you've been waiting for. We've been waiting for, because it's Patrick Mahomes, prime Mahomes, with an elite defense. And we have been saying for the last handful of years, since 2018, really, just imagine what it would look like if we could pair Patrick Mahomes with an elite defense. Well, here it is. Here it is. It's the best defense Mahomes has ever played with. No question about it. We have a texter from the 785 who points out that even that 2020 Chiefs team, which I say is the best team of this run, the counter argument is any Chiefs team that had Anthony Hitchens, Dan Sorensen, and Ben Neiman was not the best of the Mahomes era. And that is fair. Like that is a fair criticism. That's certainly, like, man for man on defense, this is a better defense. There's no question about it. This is a big-time defense. This is not just one that, oh, the numbers make it look good, or, oh, a pile of turnovers has made it look better than it actually is. This is a legitimate, no BS, no lying about it, elite Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I remember, so obviously week on the job here, but I was out of a job in the media realm since September, so I've been very much consuming all of the NFL rather than just, a couple teams. I was like, this could be a year where you see Mahomes not necessarily, I guess, it's kind of weird wording, but like back into the Super Bowl because of his defense. I feel like for the last 6-7 years, we've known the Chiefs as the Patrick Mahomes show.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like he doesn't have to do everything.
This year's team has been different.
Yeah.
There's no question. This year's team has been different. This team has ridden the defensive performance to a lot of the 13 wins that they have collected. When you count their postseason wins, they're 13-6. A lot of them have been a result of outstanding play on the defensive side. But like, if I gone back and told you before this season began, or if I gone back and told you 2 years ago, the 2023 Chiefs will pair Patrick Mahomes, who we know to be the best quarterback in football, with the best defense he's ever had. And not just the best defense he's ever had, because that's not, as our texter points out, it's not a high bar to clear when you're talking about some of the guys who've gotten like significant run for the Chiefs defensively over the last handful of years. Quick, name the Chiefs' weak link on this defense, because it was really easy to pick it out for a lot of years. It was Daniel Sorensen for a lot of years, or it was Anthony Hitchens and Reggie Ragland, because God love them, they were really, really slow at linebacker for years. Who is the weak link on this Chiefs defense? Who's the guy that you feel like, oh my gosh, like, why is he getting snaps? Do they have that guy? I don't think they have that guy. I really don't. I don't know who I would say. If you pressed me on that question, who is the Chiefs' weak link on defense? I don't know. I'd have to go way down the depth chart before I gave you somebody. Like, I didn't feel great about Jack Cochran when he had to play all those snaps against the Packers, but that's middle linebacker 3. Like, there's not really a weakness on this defense. There's not really a weak link in the chain in this group. And so to have a defense like that with Patrick Mahomes, wouldn't your assumption have been not just, oh, yeah, they're going to win this, that's a Super Bowl champion, but that's a dominant Super Bowl champion. Wouldn't that have been what you expected out of a year like this if we told you this was what was coming? That you would finally have that Mahomes plus elite defense combination together at last. That's why I tend to think this is not a house money game for the Chiefs. Now, this is not me saying this season is a failure if the Chiefs lose, or this season is a disappointment if the Chiefs lose. Because at the end of the day, yeah, every season that a team doesn't win a championship, no matter, like, the Panthers are disappointed they didn't win the Super Bowl. That wasn't the expectation, but they're still disappointed. You don't win the Super Bowl from a player's perspective, a coach's perspective. You fell short of that goal. That's a disappointment. If I'm talking about you, the fan however you want to fan. I'm not telling you have to be disappointed or you have to be upset or you have to consider this season a failure one way or another. But I also don't sense that the Chiefs or the Chiefs Kingdom are going into this game feeling like, oh, we're playing with house money now. We're underdogs on the road in an AFC championship game. Just getting here has been a joy. No, not after 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years. Not after 2 Super Bowl champions and 1 other Super Bowl appearance in the last 4 years. No. Anything less than that, I think, is going to feel broadly like a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like seeing an outsider's perspective, what was it, about week 12 or 13, where they had so many games left and they could have made a run in order to get the number 1 seed, but they didn't. And I feel like when they went into the postseason, people were like, well, this is a failure because they're not going to be home during the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that did feel like the regular season was a failure because they didn't accomplish number 1 seed. They didn't get the bye. Took them until the second to last week of the season to clinch a division championship. They did not dominate divisional play in the way that they have in recent years. They went 4-2 against the division this year. And one of those 4 wins was a 1-point win over Easton Stick and the Chargers. Now, I know that was playing Gabbert, but still, it was not the traditionally dominant Chiefs regular season.
You're used to something for 5 straight years, and then the 6th year is not living up to where you thought it would be, but it's an overall good team.
Yeah, there are no bums in the conference championship game. Like, there's never been anybody got to the conference championship by accident. Christopher makes an interesting point in the YouTube comments. Again, 5A Sports Talk on YouTube. Christopher says, I don't want to outright say the regular season bores the Chiefs, but do I really have to? Their postseason play says it for me. Maybe the Chiefs are at a point where they're like an NBA team where we're not really worried about how this regular season goes. We're not really worried about our seed. We're not really concerned about going on the road. We just got to get to the dance, and then we got the best guy, and we'll figure it out from there. That's a risky play, but like that's kind of how like NBA teams have played it. Like, you think the Lakers care that much about the regular season? I mean, they better care more about it than they do presently because they might not make it to the playoffs. But like last year for the Lakers, for instance, they made the play-in tournament, and then they made the Western Conference Finals because when it got to the playoffs, they had LeBron James, they had Anthony Davis, and LeBron is, even at 38, still LeBron. Maybe that's how the Chiefs are looking at the regular season. Maybe it's how they should look at the regular season, as sort of like an experimental lab of sorts. And if you don't win 14 games, you don't get the number 1 seed. You know what nobody else has going into the playoffs? They don't have these dudes on defense, and they definitely don't have this dude taking the snaps.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thought, and I'm sure if you asked the Chiefs to a man, they'd deny that. But I do wonder if in the back of their minds, they were maybe killing time a little bit in this regular season. They've hit a different level in the playoffs for sure. Mark in the YouTube comments, I thought they'd get here, just went a different way to get there.
I feel like, too, they've dealt with some injuries along the season that you didn't quite expect. I mean, Kelsey missed the first regular season game, and did he miss some time else?
No, he just missed that one game, but like wasn't right. Like I
don't think for the first few weeks that he was right when he came back.
And Nick Bolton missed a big chunk of the season. That was obviously a loss. Chris Jones missed the opener, and you know that first game can set a tone for your season, and I think it set a weird tone for the Chiefs this year, where Kelsey didn't play and Jones was holding out and watching from a suite. And
yeah, that was weird to me.
Tony had the bobbled pass that turned into a pick six the other way. It did. I think it set a weird vibe for the regular season that it almost feels like the playoffs have maybe snapped the Chiefs out of a little bit. Dance in the YouTube comment says, I didn't think the Chiefs would make it past the wild card game, to be honest. I think a lot of Chiefs fans probably felt that way. And we're prepared for that to be what happened going into the playoffs because of how disappointing this regular season felt. But the way they've hit the gas the last 2 weeks, combined with the fact that this is the scenario that Chiefs fans have been waiting for since their inferior defense was the reason they didn't win the whole thing in Mahomes' rookie year. This is the scenario. This is Patrick Mahomes plus an elite defense. And you can take that anywhere, into any stadium, against any opponent. Damn the point spread. You should feel like you have a pretty good chance to win. And I certainly wouldn't begrudge any Chiefs fan anywhere for being a little disappointed if they don't. We're going to take our first break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we're going to play a little game of either or over under. And Rick Peterson will join us at the bottom of this hour. Still to come on the show, Mitch Holthus, top of the 3 o'clock hour. CJ Moore to talk Big 12 hoops at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Lots to get to and only 3 hours to get to it in. So hang with us. We're going to have a fun one today here on 580 Sports Talk.
Have you
BW Topeka.
It's 2:30 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Spencer with you today for the first 2 hours. Brendan will join us remotely from Hayes, America in the 4 o'clock hour when I have to head out for the Capital City Classic. More about that coming up in just a little bit. We'll preview it with Rick Peterson, the best of the best, covering high school sports in the city for the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound here on 580 Sports Talk. Right now, though, going to play a little bit of either or over under, and looking ahead to conference championships Saturday with mine, Spencer. Over under 1/2, so 0.5. Eminem songs used as return bumpers or exit bumpers on the Fox broadcast of the NFC Championship game.
I'm hammering the over.
Hammering the over. They go with a lot of Eminem.
Not just taking the over. I am hammering it.
So there are a lot of great artists from Detroit. Like I would rather hear personally, like Eminem had his moment. Like I'm not trying to say, Eminem's a bum. Eminem, like I haven't checked for new Eminem for a decade, but like, he got some good songs. He got some classics, honestly. Like I would almost say it is a certainty if the game is close in the second half and the Lions make like a big play or score a touchdown, you will lose yourself. Like I would almost, that will be like a dead certainty. But I don't know if you're getting more than that. And if the Lions get blown out, you might get a lot more, I don't know, you might get a lot more San Francisco-based artists than the Detroit artists. Like, I know that Eminem has been like the Lions celebrity fan du jour. Like, where's Bob Seger at? Let's get the best musician from Detroit. Where's Bob Seger at these days? Can we get still the same going into a commercial break? Like, get Seger out there.
I did not. I knew this, but I never put it together. I was wondering why they were playing RES Respect, not realizing that Aretha Franklin was in fact from Detroit.
Oh yeah,
on last week's broadcast.
Oh yeah, she is a Detroiter. Lots of great.
Big Sean, another rapper.
Not a fan. not a big Sean guy. He Big Sean is always at every turn very pleased with himself and his wordplay, and that doesn't really do it for me.
What about some Kid Rock?
Absolutely not. No, hard pass on Kid Rock. He's not giving me anything I'm checking for.
How about some Lizzo?
Nah, man, no. That moment came and went. Had her moment, came and went. I need some Seeger is what I need. I need some Seeger on Sunday. Fox broadcast, if you're listening, give me some Seeger returns. Give me some of that.
Seven Nation Army? White Stripes?
The song mentions Wichita in it, so maybe that's more of a Wichita song than a Detroit song.
They're from Detroit, though.
I know Jack and Meg are from Detroit. So yeah, you're probably right on the over. So similar question: over under half a Taylor Swift song played on the CBS broadcast.
See, have they really played Taylor? I haven't really noticed that.
They haven't, and I don't think she's allowed it.
I think that's what it is. It's her rights to her music.
I think she has discouraged the use. Now
but what about now?
She owns her Taylor's versions, but like,
what about now?
They could backdoor and call Scooter Brown and get the originals.
Yeah,
get the original Bad Blood or whatever it is and play that on the broadcast. I don't know. I don't think you want to invoke the wrath of Taylor, and you definitely don't want to invoke the wrath of her fans. They'll probably keep that one on the safe side.
I've got a funny one to kind of go along with this.
All right, let's hear it.
Over under how many times will Tony Romo mistake Taylor, if she is in fact there? We won't know, for Travis Kelce's wife.
What if he's not mistaken? What if they've been secretly married this whole time and Romo got invited to the wedding and he just starts spilling details about Jim, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce's wife. It was a lovely wedding. They had beautiful place settings. They served tapas. It was amazing. Like, he's just going to start like spilling details of this super secret wedding that only the Kelce's and like the Mahomeses and Tony Romo got to go to.
I've got another one.
Okay.
Over under, we'll set it at 1.5. How many times on the Fox broadcast will it be brought up that Greg Olsen won't be with that crew next year?
It will be, not during the game. That'll probably be like at the end when they're signing off. Kevin Burkhardt will say something like, "Hey, it's been great working with you, partner," and Greg Olsen will thank him, and I'm sure they'll get a moment at some point, probably towards the end, if the game is one-sided,
with like 3 minutes left, when they start thanking the producers.
Yeah, when they start
directors.
if it's one of those games that if 49ers are up like 30-14 and they start thanking the technical director and all of that stuff. Yeah, that moment would occur then during the game. But I would bet that's going to be something that happens after the game. Greg Olsen has gotten so good as an analyst, and he's going to be shoved aside for Tom Brady. And I know that Brady is wired to be the best at whatever it is that he does, which is why he was the best at what he was doing for as long as he was. But is he going to be as motivated to be a great analyst? Because I have a feeling that he's not. I have a feeling he's just kind of going to mail it in. I mean, for the check, I'd do it too.
Yeah,
But
I mean, there's a lot of, we could go on for a whole hour about.
I don't love it. I'm not
all the analysts.
I'm not excited about. Like, I'm not like dying to hear what Tom Brady has to say. Like, I don't like. No disrespect to his greatness, but I have never thought that he had anything particularly interesting or revealing to say about football. And maybe that's been by design. And now that he's out of the game and doesn't have to answer to Bill Belichick anymore, maybe that'll loosen him up and maybe he'll be great. Like, I'll allow for the possibility that Tom Brady will be good, but I know that Greg Olsen is good. I know that he and Kevin Burkhardt have good chemistry as Fox's number one team. So I am a little bummed for Greg, that third leg Greg, they're breaking that up.
I have a prediction, not an over-under, either or. After I guess it's till 2025, so one more season, I believe, Chris Collinsworth is under contract at NBC. Greg Olsen on Sunday Night Football.
You know, I wouldn't hate that.
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't hate that at all if Collinsworth does indeed decide that it's time to hang it up.
Well, it might not even be Collinsworth.
Yeah, maybe it's NBC makes that decision for him. Although,
I mean, they kind of made that decision with Al Michaels. Al Michaels, and especially this year, they made that.
Don't put it past NBC to just put, the NBC, the N in NBC stands for nepotism. So don't put it past to put Jack in the booth. Just assume it'll be the same.
Yeah, I think he's good at. Is he still at Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think he's terrible. I don't know.
I think keep him at Notre Dame level.
I don't think Jack Collinsworth adds anything.
Yeah,
I think he doesn't add anything to the table. I think he actively removes things from the table. I think
Chris Collinsworth does the same thing.
I see. I like Collinsworth.
I liked him, and then I've watched so much Sunday Night Football that I've kind of, as a broadcaster and doing games in college and learning all about it, and I've done that to too many broadcasters. I've gone in like surgically. I don't like he says this. I don't like he does that.
No, it does. You hear it differently. We who do this for a living hear it differently than you, the fan. We might like guys you don't like, or not like guys that you like. That's kind of how,
like, I hated Joe Buck and Troy Aikman at Fox, but I loved them on Monday Night Football.
Go figure. We got to take a break. Rick Peterson of TopSports.News is going to join us next for the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
We all make resolutions.
We are out to Rick Peterson From TopSports.News, we will be joined by Pistol shortly. He covers Shawnee County High School sports for TopSports.News, along with Washburn University Athletics. You can find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. You can hear him every Thursday right here on 580 Sports Talk on the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound. Pistol, we'll get to tonight's tournament action in a bit, but I want to go back to last weekend and the Topeka Invitational Tournament. Wichita Northwest comes to town and wins it. They hand Highland Park their first loss of the season in the championship game, 64-61, a thriller that came down to the end. What was your takeaway from what you saw? What impressed you over the weekend?
Well, first of all, I think the Northwest game will really help Highland Park moving forward because, they need a game like that. If I remember, they may not have had a single-digit game until they got to state last year. A game like this will help them because they have so many of those games that are 20, 30, 40-point games that they kind of you don't know exactly how you're going to handle yourself in close situations until you have a close game. So I think that'll be good for them.
Yeah, no question about that. I think that playing a team of Northwest caliber, too, that's one of the best teams in Class 6A. You can learn a lot from a game like that. Elsewhere, Topeka West came out of that weekend with a pair of wins. They ended up winning the 5th-place game. How important was that for Rick Bloomquist Charges to right their ship a little bit and go 2-1 in the TIT?
It was huge because they were coming off a 46-point loss to DeSoto, and then they lose a heartbreaker in the first round to Shawnee Mitch North, if I remember right. And then so they really needed that, and they bounced back with a win over Lawrence, and then they bounced back with a really decisive rivalry win over Topeka High. So no. Rick Bloomquist went from really down in the dumps after Thursday's game to feeling really good about his team. And then it showed because then they go on the road and beat a good Baser Linwood program Tuesday night.
We're talking to Rick Peterson of TopSports.News on the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound here on 580 Sports Talk. You mentioned Topeka High boys. They were in action last night and lost to Seaman. It's been a bit of an up and down year for the Vikings and Coach Craig Cox. They're a pretty young team trying to work some guys in, but they had a good showing at their tournament last weekend and getting the second half of the season started off on a high note last night.
Well, they're without Briar Finley, who's one of their better players, one of their best players, and he's out with a back injury, I believe. And Landon Wilkes stepped up huge for them last night. And they had some other, like you said, young kids are starting to find their way. I wouldn't want to play a Craig Cox team anytime in postseason, and I think we're going to see that as no matter what their record is in the regular season, they're going to be a factor in Sub-State.
As we get into tournament week on the girls' side, one team was already in action in their tournament. Hayden got a win earlier this week against Jackson Heights, and the Wildcats have just added Amelia Ramsey, a transfer from Highland Park, to their lineup. How is she going to fit in, you think, with a Hayden team that already has in Lauren Sandstrom and Briley Meyer, a couple of really good post players?
Yeah, I think she'll fit in very well because I think she knows a lot of those girls from summer basketball and club basketball. And I think she, in this town, most athletes know all the other athletes.
That is true.
So I think she'll fit in fine, and it makes an already good Hayden team even potentially a lot better.
Who is going to have to step up for Highland Park in Ramsey's absence? Who are the players that are going to become even more important for them as they navigate the second half of their season?
Well, they got the Broyles, they still have some players, and they're in a league that they will be able to compete in with what they have now. Permella Carter is going to be the go-to girl now, probably. She's a freshman, a very good freshman. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the Emporia Glacier's Edge tournament.
Yeah, they are in the Glacier's Edge. They start tonight. They play Free State. Shawnee Heights is also down in Emporia. Their girls playing against Blue Valley. In the city, the Capital City Classic is the big event. It's going to be our Lewis Toyota High School basketball game of the week coverage these next two nights. Our coverage is going to start at 5 o'clock. We'll join the second game tonight. That's Topeka High against Wichita Heights in progress. And then we'll bring you in their entirety. Seaman against Shawnee Mission West and Topeka West against Wichita South. But let's look at that tournament, Pistol, and we'll start with the first game, Washburn Rural taking on Lawrence. It's been a long time since Rural's gotten a chance to play, but they're 6-2, and they are going to be, I think, tested. They always test themselves and schedule tough, so they should be used to the level of competition they're going to see this weekend.
Yes, they will. And, I think Lawrence is playing without one of their best players, so I think Rural handles this game. And then potentially a really good matchup with Wichita Heights.
Yeah, the second game of the night, Wichita Heights, they're the second-ranked team in Class 6A, according to the KBCA. In fact, there are 4 top 10 teams in the state in this Capital City Classic. Washburn Rural's ranked in the top 10 in 6A. Wichita South is also in the top 10. I believe they are 10th, and Rural is 9th in the most recent poll. Then you have Seaman ranked 2nd in the latest KBCA Class 5A poll. Topeka High gets Wichita Heights tonight. That's certainly an enviable task, but it's all about gaining experience for Brittany Redmond's squad because they are super young, and they're going to get some experience against a great team tonight.
Yeah, and that's the way you have to approach it. Just keep trying to make steps. They only got 8 players at least on their tournament roster. Now they may add some more, but right now on the tournament roster they got 8 players, and they're all very, very young. So just do your best, try to make progress, and, play you. Play you and just try to get better.
Continuing our Lewis Toyota High School whip around with Rick Peterson of TopSports.News, covering Shawnee County High School athletics. You can find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. He joins us every week here on 580 Sports Talk on Thursday for the Lewis Toyota High School whip around. The other 2 games at the Capital City Classic tonight, Seaman and Shawnee Mission West. This will be the first time Seaman plays a 6A team all season long. Shawnee Mission West just 3-6, I believe, on the season. And Seaman, of course, has run the table to this point. They're 9-0. What would it mean to Seaman to win this tournament?
Well, I know. I think it's always huge because it's winning a tournament, boys or girls, just gives you that momentum going into the second half of the season. Now, for Seaman, that would be a really big accomplishment because, as we just mentioned, with teams like Rural and Wichita Heights and Wichita South, they're going to play potentially, state title caliber teams in the semifinals and the final.
They do have the advantage, of course, of playing at home. So this should be an outstanding opportunity for Matt Tinsley's unbeaten Lady Vikes. Final game of the night, Topeka West and Wichita South. Wichita South, as I mentioned, top 10 team in Class 6A. Topeka West, though, bit of a slow start, but they've played better of late, and they're starting to score at a little higher volume as well. And they're going to need to score against a high-octane Wichita South team tonight.
Well, and Amani McGlory is coming off a 29-point game with 7 3-pointers in a big UKC win for West against Leavenworth. And she also played some, she's just a sophomore, so she also played a little bit in the JV game that night and hit 3 threes in that game. So she had 10 on the day, and that doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, that's not too shabby. 7 threes in a game and a 29-point game, against Leavenworth in the last time out for the Charger girls. 2 other basketball notes, I guess, that I want to get to. Silver Lake girls won the Burlington Invitational last week as they continue their outstanding season. Rossville's boys, winners of the Oskaloosa Invitational. That's a super young team out there at Rossville, and winning that tournament, I think, serves notice. They're going to be really tough in the second half of this season.
Yeah, I saw Brendan McDonald a week or so ago, and we talked about that very thing. And he said he felt like that team was coming together. Jack Donovan's a sophomore. They got a bunch of other underclassmen, and I think they are. They're above 500 now. They've already at least equaled their win total from last year. And I think they're going to be good. and Silver Lake girls just keep rolling. So they're very good. But look at that class, and it's a little bit of a, I don't know. It's good. Rossville and Silver Lake are in the same sub-state, and then just here in the county, we have the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 teams in 3A.
Yeah, isn't that something? Silver Lake, Hayden, and Rossville, 1, 2, 3 in Class 3A girls basketball. I believe Rossville's only loss is to Silver Lake at this point. Silver Lake hadn't lost to anybody. So, yeah, when it comes to 3A basketball, they're playing at a really high level just here in Shawnee County on the girls' side. A couple more questions for Rick Peterson of TopSports.News, joining us for the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound. We talked about it a little bit last week. Bowling season is going to start to ramp up a bit, and looks like Shawnee Heights got off to a good start earlier this week.
Yeah, they're like all sports this winter, things have been kind of messed up because of the weather. But the bowling teams are starting to get some meets in. We're already they resurrected or started the city championships, and the city championships will be a week from tomorrow, and that'll be fun for everybody. So yeah, they're getting going, and they're such a compact season. A month from now we're at state.
Speaking of city championships, swimming city championships, those are happening today, at least on the diving side of things. And as you look at the city championship field for swimming this year, what catches your eye?
Well, yeah, and it is. It's both. I was out at diving earlier before I came to basketball, and we'll have Todd Fertig over there to cover the city meet. Washburn Rural, I think, has won 4 in a row, so they're the team to beat. They just have exceptional depth, and that's what really puts them in control in the city meet. But yeah, it's again another. They're getting down to the nitty gritty. It'll be league and then state for them after these meets right now.
And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about some wrestling. What is the latest happenings on the mat locally? Big events this weekend? Anything you've got your eye on there?
Yeah, Washburn Rural girls will host what I believe is the biggest regular season meet in the state this Saturday. I mean, just crazy numbers of girls wrestlers in town on Saturday, and it is. I mean, if you are a wrestling fan, head out there because there's really, really good competition.
Washburn Rural girls wrestling Saturday, big event, big things happening in the capital city. Big things always happening in high school sports, and when they're happening, Rick Peterson is the one to know because he knows what's going on. You can find his work, him and his staff, at TopSports.News with the Top Sports News from Topeka and Shawnee County. You can follow Rick on Twitter at Peterson_Rick, and you can hear him every Thursday right here on the Lewis Toyota High School Whiparound. Pistol, always a pleasure. We'll see you at Viking Gymnasium a little bit later on.
I'll see you later.
That is Rick Peterson. Again, our coverage tonight from the Capital City Classic will begin at 5 o'clock. We will take Game 2 of the day in progress. That is Topeka High taking on Wichita Heights. Game before that, they're going to tip off in about 5 minutes here, is Washburn Rural and Lawrence. That'll be the first of the 4 first-round games today. Our coverage will start at 5 o'clock, and it will start with wherever the game is at in progress. We will join Topeka High and Wichita Heights. That'll be followed by Seaman and Shawnee Mission West, and then the late game, Topeka West taking on Wichita South. You can catch it all right here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. Those are our Lewis Toyota High School games of the week for tonight. And then tomorrow we'll be right back out there. We'll have coverage again starting at 5 o'clock. We'll join the second of 2 consolation semifinals in progress, and we'll bring you the winners bracket semifinals in their entirety tomorrow. Looking forward to that here on WIBW. We will take a break, wrap up this 2 o'clock hour of the program. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour, Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. He's going to join us right off rip, 3:10. We're going to talk to Mitch and get his perspective on the 6th consecutive AFC Championship game appearance for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll also hear from some Chiefs players and coaches and talk about that hideous K-State game last night. That's all coming up. 580 Sports Talk.
Are you the parent of a 2 to 7-year-old?
Let's get it. Now, number 2, 580 Sports Talk, Thursday edition, January 25th. 3 days out of the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs and the Ravens. The Chiefs try and make it back to a 4th Super Bowl in 5 years. We'll get the perspective of the great Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, coming up here in just a moment. He'll join us here momentarily in this opening segment. We'll also get the inside perspective from the Chiefs themselves. A lot of them took the podium today. We won't get a chance to play all of it for you, but we'll play a good chunk of it, as much of it as we can anyhow, coming up later on this hour. And I'm going to complain about the K-State Iowa State basketball game last night, this hour as well, because it was a uniquely irritating basketball viewing experience for a lot of reasons. And I feel like is it whose dad is it's Seinfeld's dad, isn't it? He says, I got a lot of problems with you people. Or is that no, that's the guy, Jason Alexander's character.
I wouldn't know. I'm not a big
You're not a Seinfeld guy?
fan.
That's okay. I'm not either.
There's a few things from Seinfeld that I know.
Yeah, this is like one of the go-to Seinfeld references. I don't know
that one
that I've got for you. Not Kramer. What's his name? Oh my gosh, how am I forgetting his name? George Costanza. I got a lot of problems with you people. I got a lot of problems with Jerry Pollard and with the Iowa State backcourt. And you're going to hear about them here in a little bit here on 580 Sports Talk. Again, we appreciate you tuning into the program, whether you're listening on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, 580WIBW.com, or you're checking us out on the YouTube stream. We appreciate you doing that as well. You can subscribe to the YouTube page, youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. We appreciate everybody who subscribes. That makes it really easy because then you don't have to go digging for our video every day or our archive. It just comes to the front of your browser when you open up YouTube. So check us out on YouTube, subscribe, watch the show live, take part in the live chat. And you can also check out archived videos as well from past shows and past reaction videos as well. I didn't do a reaction video from the couch, K-State, Iowa State last night. I would have said some things. I would have said some not nice things. I
would not have been a PG instant reaction.
I would have used some toilet language. Yes, I would have used some inappropriate language. We would have had to put a disclaimer at the front of that.
Probably been kicked off YouTube too.
I don't know. Yeah, they might have put the explicit content warning on us on YouTube forever. I don't want those problems. I don't know. I don't know if that's even a real thing, and if it is, how you make it go away. So I don't want those problems for the rest of you. I don't want those problems for you and Brendan. So I decided I'd leave well enough alone and just react on today's program. Again, I'm Dan Lucero, by the way. Should have introduced myself at the top of the hour. Sometimes I forget. I take for granted. I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes I take for granted that you know who I am. We have been friends for a long time. But for those who don't know, I'm Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is across the glass. Brendan Wrzinski is on his way to Hayes. He is arriving there shortly. And we're going to get Brendan in the 4 o'clock hour when I leave to go to cover the Capital City Classic tonight for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Games of the Week here on 580 WIBW. Thank you to the texter from the 785 who corrects me. It was George's dad. That's my fault. I knew it was either George. I got it conflated. I thought it was an older character, but then I thought it was George. It was George's dad. It was Festivus, the airing of the grievances. Yes, I'm aware of the airing of the grievances. I'm going to air some grievances. We're going to gather around the Festivus poll, and I'm going to air some grievances about K-State and Iowa State last night. A uniquely frustrating and irritating basketball viewing experience beyond the part where K-State lost. But right now, we are privileged to be joined on the show, as we are every Thursday, by the great Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, who joins us as a courtesy of our friends from Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, 13 playoff wins in the Mahomes era now for the Chiefs. And obviously, the Super Bowls themselves are at the top of the list. But I have to believe that there was something uniquely not satisfying, because I don't want to suggest that this team is in any way satisfied going into the AFC Championship game, but uniquely enjoyable about the circumstances of the win in Buffalo on Sunday. Is that a fair assessment to say that one's gonna live long in the memory?
Well, each one of these playoff games has its own kind of category or theme to it. But yeah, this one was a little akin to the Cincinnati Jabroni Bowl in that all of the discussion all week long, and I talked about it with you guys, of Patrick Mahomes had never played in a road playoff game. What about Super Bowl 55? Oh, no, it's a Super Bowl. Technically, it's a neutral site. Well, that one wasn't. I mean, free tickets were given out to people who had been cooped up for 5 months, and they were like, spitting bottle rockets at us. That was, I actually talked to Pat after the game about it. He goes, "You mean like Super Bowl 55?" Like, we were both kind of joking about it, but there was some satisfaction into going into a place in Buffalo with a fan base and a team that was so all in. They had loaded the cannon with canister and everything they had, and to go in there and win that game, it just really kind of shut up a lot of the lazy narratives, because people wouldn't have thought, well, wait a minute, maybe Patrick's won 40 road games. So hence the end, which is now, GoPros on the booth all the time, and that thing's gone viral and it's astonishing how many hits that's had on the no good field goal in me ending the game. But still, that was some of that oozing out, and our team felt all of that. But they're not, they're zeroing in now on trying to get a Lamar Hunt trophy.
The thing that really stood out to me about the offensive performance against Buffalo was how on song everyone seemed to be, that the communication levels seem to be improving now here in the last few games, that everybody seems and appears to be on the same page offensively. What is the biggest reason in your mind, observing from your unique position, this offense, particularly in these first 2 playoff games, what is the biggest difference that it now feels like we're a little maybe accustomed to seeing it feel, where it feels like everybody's on the same page and things are really clicking for Mahomes and company?
Okay, I'm going to give you, I'm going to try to condense this answer, but it goes way beyond these last 2 playoff victories. It goes back to the week prior to the Cincinnati game. And that New Year's Eve win, which was fueled by the offensive line, that week after being embarrassed basically by the Raiders saying, not again, never again, that started it. What that did then in winning that Cincinnati game, as we've discussed many times, was open up a week 18 rest, physical, mental rest. And they still won the Charger game, which I thought gave another bit of adrenaline to the team. So they were ready for the minus 30 wind chill game and to beat the Dolphins. And they were ready, concentration-wise, confidence-wise, to go into Buffalo and win. Because here's what's crazy about that game, and maybe you guys have talked about it, but the Chiefs only had 43 advancements. Buffalo had 78. The Chiefs scored 27 points without a defensive score, special team score, on 43 snaps. Buffalo had 24 on 78. The Chiefs only were in third down 5 times. Now, my final part of the answer to you is the fact that the Chiefs have found a triangle. And we've talked about this, but it's worth reviewing. Because the triangle is now Kelsey, Rice, Pacheco. Mahomes obviously hangs over the top of that triangle. But the other guys, Watson's, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Clyde, Gray, realize that they're complementary to the triangle. The triangle also takes pressure off of biting and pinching and double teaming Kelsey. So what's happened in these 4 weeks is everything I told you, you can't exclude any of these marks that have got the Chiefs to this point and gives them a chance to win this week.
Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk, again, a courtesy of our friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Let's now look ahead to the 6th consecutive AFC Championship game appearance for the Chiefs as they head out on the road to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And the Ravens have been an impressive bunch all year long. They have beaten soundly some of the league's best teams, and they have certainly earned the right. They've got the MVP on offense. They've got the number 1 scoring defense. What stands out to you as the most pivotal matchup in this meeting between the Chiefs and the Ravens?
Well, let me give you some things if you're in the Chiefs kingdom to feel bad about and then feel good about. And then I will give you the keys. to this game. I think that's what you're asking. But this Baltimore team, and you mentioned they blasted winning teams by double digits. And to put it in historical context, here's your first and maybe the biggest nugget of the night. The Baltimore Ravens are the first team to lead the league in rushing. Well, only 3 teams have done this. That is, lead the league in rushing, lead the league in scoring defense, and score at least 25 points. Okay, follow all those qualifiers?
Mm-hmm.
The only other 2 teams to do that were the 72 Dolphins, the last undefeated team, and the 85 Bears. Those were thought to be the top 2 teams in NFL history.
Yeah, no kidding.
Now,
wow.
Okay, so that's one thing for the Ravens to think about. They're the first team in 54 years with this defense to lead the league in scoring defense, sacks, and takeaways. 60 sacks, impressively 44 without a blitz. 31 takeaways led to 105 takeaway points. And then thirdly, to lead the league in scoring defense. They're only giving up 16-something a game. Now, that's going to feel bad about it, right? You're like Chiefs fans going, oh my gosh, we're playing the 85 Bears or the 72 Dolphins. The other side of this equation, though, and it hasn't been talked about, I don't think enough, 28 members of the Ravens got their first playoff win last week. And the fact that Lamar Jackson, he'll be the MVP. This is only his 6th playoff game and his first ever AFC Championship game. Mahomes is 13-3 and have been in this game now 6 consecutive years. Will that mean victory? Not necessarily, but it's an equalizer. Being in this game and having experience in this game is paramount. I've noticed this and learned it down through the years. Another nugget of the night, the first and second year players for the Chiefs. Think about how impactful these guys have been. These are guys that were rookies last year or rookies this year, not free agents or pros that have joined us, like Tranquil, yeah. But just rookies a year ago and rookies this year are combined in the playoffs 49-0. They played 49 playoff games going into this one and have yet to lose. So to me, that is a bit of an equalizer. The keys, some of these are very obvious, but I'll just give you the most obvious one, I think, or the biggest one, is offensively. You've got to stay aggressive, but stay ahead of the game. Meaning, one of the reasons they won last week, they were nearly pristine in penalties. Only had 2, only 1 offensive penalty. And it was a hold that was inconsequential. No false starts. And Baltimore lives off 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 9. They will absolutely be piranha in the fish tank. So that's first. Stay ahead of the chains, either eliminate 3rd downs like the Chiefs did completely against Buffalo, or have manageable 3rd downs. That's where this game starts.
Mitch Holthus, our guest, voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. And Mitch, obviously getting back to work this week in practice are the Chiefs on the field, but they're without some key players. Joe Thuney specifically, not looking good for him this week. But Pacheco has missed practice, but he seems to be good to go, right?
Yeah, he'll be good to go, I think. Now, Coach will give you these. I'm not the truth on these, Coach is. And, Thuney did such an awesome job on Oliver last week. Oliver's really good. And it's like Thuney gave up his tricep muscle to win that game. But Allegretti filled in great, not only in that game, but he was the center for the Chargers game in Week 18. Now, Matabike is a stud for the Ravens. We know that. So the Chiefs have got to deal with that. But still, you got to go and attack this thing. But we'll see. I think Pacheco will be able to go.
On defense for the Chiefs, as they face this Ravens offense with one of the great dual threat quarterbacks in the game in Lamar Jackson, what is paramount, do you believe, in this matchup for the Chiefs? Is it limiting the Ravens' ground game? Is it not giving up the splash plays, which they took away from Buffalo last week? And surely it's a combination of everything. I mean, you'd love to just never give up any yards, but if there's one thing where the Chiefs have to be sharpest, what do you think that facet of defense would be?
Well, let me see. I got my old school test with the number 2 pencil, oval in, all of the above, but it starts with your first thing. If you don't somehow slow down the run game, then you have no chance against these guys. Now, they're throwing it better, and Zay Flowers has helped them. Although, I'll just be honest with you, Lamar Jackson still struggles on throwing corner routes. His best routes are go routes, either the numbers with the wide receivers or he's so tight end centric. Here's another one of your nuggets of the night. When Lamar Jackson this year targets his tight ends, and Andrews will be back, but all of them, likely all those guys at tight end. The fact that his quarterback rating is 139, he has 11 touchdowns, no picks to the tight ends. Well, that's in between the numbers. Outside the numbers, he still struggles and does not have a very good QBR on the outside. And the other thing is, if you've got to go off script and trip, you've got to go 75 yards. It's 4 minutes to go. You're down 4. Can Lamar do that? Now, you've got to get to that point. And to get to that point, you've got to defend the run game, and especially the Lamar Jackson run game. He's the only quarterback in NFL history who has led his team in rushing for 5 consecutive years. Now, one advantage for the Chiefs in this game, and I talked to Spags about it, he agreed. He said, yeah, that's an awesome point, is the fact when you talk to colleges and they got to play Army, they're going, oh, God, I mean, it's going to take us a month to get ready for these guys because it's so different than anything you face. But if you play Army and Air Force in back-to-back weeks, you're ready to play Air Force because of the way you trained your mind and your scheme to beat Army, if that makes sense. The two most teams in the league that look like the K-State Colin Klein 2012 team are the Ravens and the Bills. And they've got some really good, intricate disguise schemes for quarterback run plays for Lamar Jackson. Oh, it's a pass. It's a pass. No, it's not. And Ronnie Stanley pulls, and all of a sudden, Lamar Jackson takes off with a full head of steam with a Pro Bowl All-Pro tackle in front of him. They do an awesome job of disguising it. And so that has to be done first. That's the first box you have to check to get down the line to the other things we've mentioned.
Well, last question for Mitch Holthus, voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, who again joins us courtesy of Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. This is not untrod upon territory for the Chiefs in the sense that obviously this is 6 consecutive AFC championship games, but these are different circumstances. It is out on the road. It is not at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs enter this game as an underdog. That has not been the case in the previous 5 AFC championship games. With all of that being said, we hear Andy Reid say it all the time. They look forward to the challenge every single week. It's how he starts his press conferences on Monday, every single week without fail. But this is a team that has seemed to really embrace the greatest of challenges over the last half decade plus. Do they sense this as maybe their greatest challenge, going on the road to play a team of this caliber in a game like this?
I don't know. Now, I respect the question, but that might be a little bit of recency bias. Think about the Eagles team we played last year, which was the best team defensively since the 85 Bears, and trail in that game. That was a pretty daunting task. And even the 49ers Super Bowl, where they had just loaded with first rounders on the defensive front, that was pretty ominous. This one's, you can argue Baltimore in many ways is the best team in the league. And I could make a case for that and against that, but still, that's in the discussion. But in this stretch of 6 years, there have been a lot of tough games and a lot of tough circumstances against teams that I think the Eagles of last year in Super Bowl 57 are the equal of the Baltimore Ravens of 2023. And I mean, with receivers and runners and a running quarterback and skilled players and a flesh-eating defense, and to go on the road, you're saying, okay, that was neutral soil. But look at some of these Bills teams beating the Bengals last year. That wasn't exactly, easy because that's still Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and they own us and all that stuff. So I just tell you, it's just one more really tough team to beat in the playoffs if you're going to get it done again. I could just give you a litany of tough games, both regular season and postseason, that this team has been able to overcome most of the time, almost all of the time.
The Chiefs have been here before. They'll try and make sure they can play one more on Sunday in Baltimore in their 6th consecutive AFC championship game. Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, will be there with the call. He comes to us on Thursdays on 580 Sports Talk with thanks to our friends from Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, it is always a pleasure. Safe travels to Baltimore and bring home that Lamar Hunt trophy.
You got it, guys. And if Pat Mahomes wins this game, his 14th playoff victory will equal Peyton Manning, John Elway, Terry Bradshaw.
We're dealing with one of the very best to ever do it, and we're not even We're not even close to done with him. Speaking of the best to do it, Mitch Holthus, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
That is Mitch Holthus. We're gonna take a break, come back, and I'm gonna get everything I got to get off my chest about K-State Iowa State last night. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
Looking for something fun to do? Head over to the
.29 on 580 Sports Talk. Got some Chiefs audio coming your way here in just a little bit from earlier today. Brendan will join us at 4 from Hayes America, and we'll get his takes in the 4 o'clock hour along with Spencer. I'll be headed out to Seaman High School for the Capital City Classic coverage starting at 5 o'clock tonight here on 580 WIBW. K-State loses last night to Iowa State. They dropped to 14-5 overall, 4-2 in Big 12 play. Now half a game behind Texas Tech, who is idle this week until Saturday for first place in the conference. Spencer, did you see the game?
A little bit.
Do you have anything you want to say about it before I start?
I watched the beginning and looked like a weird game to me in the beginning from afar. And
you
then,
have no idea.
And then I was like, well, I'm pretty sure K-State was losing by 10 at one point, maybe.
They were down by as many as 13.
Yeah, so I think
in the first half.
And then I checked like with 11 minutes to go in the game, and I was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
And it was tied.
Yeah, it got tied. K-State can never get over the hump and never led in the game, but they had chances. And they'll, before any of the other stuff, bemoan the couple of missed open looks they got from three that would have given them a 64-63 lead, or going 1 of 5 from the free throw line down the stretch, or all the turnovers. You know, last year's K-State team, you guys will remember who follow K-State closely, they had a turnover problem last year too. And then they kind of locked in and stopped turning the ball over down the stretch. And in the NCAA tournament, wasn't a problem at all when they went to the Elite Eight. But this team, a little too profligate with the basketball, turning it over too much. They were crushed on the glass. I think they were minus 13 on the glass last night. That's a tough place to be. Ames, a tough place to win. Iowa State defends you really well. If you dribble the ball on the sideline against Iowa State, you are in hell. That is not where you want to go. Some teams take away the middle. Iowa State just descends on you if you get the ball to the sideline, and they forced a lot of K-State's turnovers just on sideline traps. And K-State likes to drive the baseline, kick across the floor. Iowa State's defensive scheme just took that away. There's a lot of controllables that K-State can do better, right? Like they can make more open looks. They can do better from the free throw line. They can rebound better. They can take better care of the basketball. All of those things, if they'd done them better, they might have been able to walk out of there with a win, even without all the nonsense last night. But now we're going to talk about the nonsense last night. Jerry Pollard should never work another Big 12 basketball game as the crew chief of an officiating crew. That was an appalling officiating performance from Pollard. And look, Kelly Self and Owen Smart, not all that great themselves, for being honest about it. But Jerry Pollard made that game all about himself in every single way that an official can. And then in one of the pivotal moments of the game, you've probably seen the clip if you've been online today. It's late in the game. Taman Lipsey for Iowa State, more about him in a second, tries to go right on Dorian Finister. And Lipsey's left arm, his lead arm, comes up and he elbows Finister in the chops. Catches him in the lip, cuts him. The Finister has to leave the game because he's bleeding. Of course, Lipsey, because he's a con artist, made sure to throw his head back, as I almost lose my headphones doing it on the YouTube stream, throw his head back as soon as he felt contact, because the only thing he cares about is trying to get a whistle and trying to get to the line. And at that point in the game, he had every reason to think a whistle was coming, because there was a stretch where of 10 Iowa State possessions, 9 of them ended with a K-State foul. And that was, not coincidentally, following a point in the game where there was a foul called on Robert Jones of Iowa State. He fouled Cam Carter on a drive. It so incensed TJ Otzelberger that he almost got a technical foul. It so incensed the crowd at Hilton Coliseum that they started booing and swearing at the officials. And it intimidated Jerry Pollard and Kelly Self and Owen Smart. And they called fouls on K-State on 9 of the next 10 possessions. So, of course, Lipsey thinks he's going to get a foul with his play-acting nonsense. Of course he thinks he's going to get it. But not only did they not call a foul on Finister, they didn't call a foul on Lipsey, or didn't even go to the monitor to look and see why a player is bleeding from the mouth. Why didn't they go to the monitor? Because Jerry Pollard didn't see it. And when I say he didn't see it, I'm not saying like, oh, he just missed it. I'm saying he literally missed it. I'm saying he was literally looking into the crowd while 15 feet away from him, Dorian Finister takes an elbow to the chops. And Jerry Pollard can't be bothered to look. He took his eyes off the game. The one thing you can't do as an official, he took his eyes off the game. And I'm not saying that cost Kansas State the game. I'm not saying the fact that Iowa State shot 39 free throws. 39! How many minutes is a college basketball game, Spencer? Refresh my memory.
40.
39 free throws in 40 minutes? The hell is that? I'm not saying that's why Kansas State lost. It's not. All the other stuff I talked about before is why Kansas State lost this game. But that was an appallingly officiated game. It took 2.5 hours. Jerry Pollard watched a hook and hold review for a solid 4 minutes, and he couldn't be bothered to see why a Kansas State player was bleeding from the mouth because he literally did not see it.
That's a player safety issue, right?
You're not looking at the game. How do you take your eyes off the game? It's your job to see everything. And he takes his eyes off the game. I don't know, maybe somebody in the front row at Hilton said something funny. I don't know. I'll tell you who thinks they're wickedly clever. Everybody in the crowd at Hilton Coliseum. They think they're a hoot.
Did you see, this was, I think, on the 16th. This might have been 2 weekends ago. The Wake Forest NC State game. There was a player that clearly was unhappy with the officiating in that game, and he flipped the birds to the official. So now that's like a meme online. And if you just look up Jerry Pollard on Twitter, that's the number one result right now.
There are a lot of officials. Like, if we know your name as a Big 12 official, that's bad. And we know too many of these guys by name. We know Tony Padilla when we see him. We know Doug Sermons and Ray Natili when we see him. We know Marcus Pettigrew. I've watched back-to-back games that Pettigrew officiated. He's bad. He was the official at Bramlage on Saturday. He was the crew chief of that crew at Bramlage that was getting booed all night. And K-State won that game. We know too many of these guys' names, but Jerry Pollard's the worst of the worst. The absolute worst of the worst. He should never officiate another Big 12 game after presiding over that nonsense last night. All right, that's enough about the officials. They stunk. Iowa State. I'm not a TJ Otzelberger fan. I just don't like him. I'm proud of him, though, because he's found a shirt that fits, and I'm really, really proud that TJ Otzelberger now has upgraded. He's no longer wearing the size medium polo shirt. He's upgraded to a shirt that actually fits. So shout out to the equipment manager, whoever got TJ Otzelberger a fitting polo shirt. But if this is how he's teaching his teams to play, I want him in jail. I cannot tell you how disgusting I find the way Taman Lipsey and Keyshawn Gilbert play basketball. I thought Raekwon Battle of West Virginia was the biggest flopper in the Big 12 conference. I thought nobody would come close to Raekwon Battle, who gets whistles like he's Reggie Miller when West Virginia plays at home, kicking his leg out like Ronaldo every time he shoots a three-pointer. I thought he was the flopper extraordinaire in the Big 12 conference. But I owe Taman Lipsey and Keyshawn Gilbert an apology, because, boys, I was not familiar with your grift. I mean, with your game. These two con artists were throwing themselves on the floor at the first possible opportunity anytime there was anyone in their vicinity, and it worked. The officials rewarded this behavior. Keyshawn Gilbert flopped 40 seconds into the game to get Cam Carter his second foul. Quick aside on that, Jerome Tang, usually really good about not auto-benching guys with 2 fouls in the first half. Like, Bruce Weber would not have brought Cam Carter back in the first half at all if Carter had picked up 2 fouls in the first 40 seconds. So at least Tang did go back to Carter for a stretch. He should have gone back to him earlier when that game was kind of starting to get away in the first half, when Iowa State was building that 6, 8, 10-point lead. I thought Tang could have gone to Carter a little bit sooner. But on the flip side, I understand watching how that game was officiated, if he was worried that just breathing on Keyshawn Gilbert might have been the third foul for Cam Carter. So I understand the caution. Anyhow, there is a rash. There is a plague in basketball these days where flopping, the head yank, or falling down is being rewarded. I think officials, by and large, have been about calling the charge and the block this year, and they're rewarding that kind of behavior less. But you wouldn't have known that last night. And you certainly wouldn't know it watching Keyshawn Gilbert play, because every time anybody was near him, he was going down. He was diving like a midfielder for Juventus in Serie A. I've never seen such diving. And it's grotesque. If you're a good enough basketball player to have a Division I scholarship, you should be better than that. Otherwise, go play intramurals. If you can't guard without falling down, if you can't drive to the basket without praying you get sent to the free throw line, go play intramurals, brother. I hate watching guys who play basketball like that. Despise it with every fiber of my being. I hate watching those guys play basketball last night. Lipsey and Gilbert. It was gross. It was a 2.5-hour game. There were a billion free throws. King McClure is the worst color analyst that ESPN foists upon their Big 12 audience. They let him dress up like he looked like he was going to go with Dally and Pony Boy to fight the Socs. Like, what? Sitting there looking like he's posing for a James Dean, dressed as James Dean for Halloween. It was ridiculous. Everything about it made it a uniquely unpleasant basketball experience. I hated everything about it. And for Iowa State, I can't wait till they do what TJ Otzelberger's teams always do, and that's choke once February and March roll around. I'm excited for the rematch. Regular season finale at Bramlage. That place is going to be a hornet's nest, and Iowa State will, by that point, be who Iowa State always is by the time February and March rolls around. Mediocre, average. And K-State will get them. But no, they are so unpleasant to watch play. And that backcourt should be tried at The Hague for crimes against basketball. That's all I got to say. We'll take a break.
We got a text from 785, and unfortunately, you get to see them do it to KU on Saturday.
Yeah. There were a lot of KU fans kind of crowing last night about K-State getting beat at Hilton Coliseum. because the officials favored the home team. Yeah, you guys are next. You guys are next. It was gross. It was grossly officiated. It was gross broadcast. It's gross to watch Lipsy and Gilbert flop for 40 minutes. Wholly unpleasant. That's all I got to say on that. We'll take a break. Chiefs audio coming up next. .344 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Spencer with you. Wrapping up this 3 o'clock hour. Again, we're off at 5 for high school hoops tonight. Lewis Toyota High School basketball games of the week from the Capital City Classic. Girls basketball action tonight. Chiefs did a lot of talking today. A lot of Chiefs hit the podium, spoke to the media. One of them.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. One of them was head coach, Andy Reid, and here's what he had to say.
Derek Nutty won't practice. Pacheco did the walkthrough but won't practice. And then Joe Tooney won't practice today. Everybody else will go. Had a good day yesterday in preparation. We know every day is important with the challenge playing the Ravens. So with that, time's yours.
The Ravens defense scores out really well in lots of categories. As you look at them further throughout this week, is there anything that stands out, or is it all just really good?
Yeah, they're good all the way around. Good back end, secondary linebackers are fast and good tacklers, and then they're front strong. So good all around defense.
Did you see anything in Lamar's game against Pittsburgh that suggested a different playoff persona than maybe he had in the past? And some sort of growth there.
Well, listen, I've always had a ton of respect for him. From the time he got in the league on, he's playing good football. He's been doing it all year and has just carried it into the playoffs. Yeah, last week.
And when you saw him coming into the league, obviously up against, I can't remember the timing, but the first time Patrick faced him, did you at that point have some sense we're going to be seeing this go on for years and years? Those two guys going against each other.
Yeah, it felt that way. I mean, the league is lucky to have these young quarterbacks that are so good, talented, but that they've got a good team around him, and he's good. And so you figured that somewhere we were going to be playing him once or twice. So yeah. Yeah, Mike will be out there.
What's his?
He's just precautionary. Just ease him back in and see how he's doing.
What did Willie have a setback? Willie Gay have a setback?
His neck is stiff, and he just can't turn right now. So it's getting better, but I mean, that's what happened in the game.
He's kind of had a setback during the game, or just couldn't go.
Yeah, it wasn't working. It got worse during the game. So it did. Yeah.
How important is Willie, especially when you face a running quarterback? Is that athleticism there?
Yeah, no, Willie, he's a big part of our defense. However, I wouldn't slight Drew for the job he did coming in. But Willie's a good player. He's part of it. He's part of the success that we've had.
So that's some of what Andy Reid had to say earlier today. Again, we've got a lot of people we can bring you, but want to bring you as many as we can. Interesting comments about Willie Gay. Does seem like he's trending toward playing on Sunday, and I think he's going to be pretty important to the Chiefs' fortunes if indeed he does go. What about Steve Spagnuolo? He spoke for longer than anybody. We won't play the whole thing, but here's some of what Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, had to say.
Good. Obviously, you're consumed with shutting down Lamar and shutting down the Ravens, but I do wonder if just from a step back standpoint, you have an appreciation for Patrick versus Lamar as a team of this game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this league is a lot about the quarterbacks, right? We're fortunate that in this game we got two of the best ones in the league. You know, our goal and what we talk about all the time is let's just get the ball back to our quarterback. You know, that's our job, right? And the only way to do that is to make sure that their quarterback doesn't do the things we know he's capable of doing. But two dynamic players that I'm sure for TV and everybody watching this will be pretty fun.
And seeing Lamar's success last week, do you feel like you saw him take a postseason step of any sort? Maybe a little bit the postseason until now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put too much credence into, we always put things in the rearview mirror. I ask our guys to do that, whether our performance was good or bad. I'm sure they do the same thing. And, we look forward to this game, and we expect him to be as dynamic and on point as he was last week.
What's the challenge when you're expecting a star player like Mark Andrews to be back in the mix? You don't necessarily have that reason.
Yeah. That's a great point. We do think he'll play. We don't know that, but we're going to plan as if he is. And he's another weapon for the quarterback, and a trusted weapon. I mean, we've seen it. It happened early in the year, and we've seen it in previous years. We'll have to be on point. What you hope for is they're a little rusty, right? Because they haven't played a lot together. But these guys are pro athletes, and they know what they're doing. So I don't think we can completely trust that that's going to happen.
Over the past few years, you've had to play some young guys. Another guy this year is Smart.
Yeah.
We've been drawing the fire a little bit to talk about,
Yeah, I'm really proud of Chamari, and really in the way he's developed. When he came here, I can remember back in OTAs, it was like, whoa, it's going to take a while, But because he wasn't used to some things that we were doing, and we're pretty multiple. But I'll tell you what, he has grinded at it. The vets around him have just kind of pulled him along, the LJs, and even Trent, and certainly Justin Reed, Mike Edwards back there. And he really, we kind of spoon-fed him early, right? We've given him piece by piece, and then he moved to nickel, and we could see he could do some things there. So and then he was out there with the guys, right? When you're here as a rookie, you're with the 2s and the 3s, right, in the walkthrough. And then all of a sudden, he's up there with the guys, right? And I think that gave him some confidence. He does play. You all see that. He plays fast, and he's physical. And I'll take that all the time. And
That is Steve Spagnuolo speaking earlier today at One Arrowhead Drive. When we get to the end of the season, we're going to, and whenever that may be, and we get into a deeper dive of what the Chiefs accomplished this year and with their outlook for the future, Shamari Connor, I think, has established himself as a big part of the Chiefs' future. I don't know necessarily what role that's going to be, but I think he's played some good football, and he's really come on down the stretch for the Chiefs in some very important games. How about QB1? Patrick Mahomes also behind the microphone today at One Arrowhead Drive. Here's some of what Patrick had to say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just looking at what he did in college, and then the Ravens organization and how much success they've had my entire life. I knew that he was going to put him in the right position to win. And we were going to be playing a lot of big games, AFC Championship, playoff games, whatever that was. And so it's cool to see that we're finally here. We're finally playing our first playoff game against each other. And it's going to be a great challenge.
You really seem to enjoy the challenges of playing on the road last week. Obviously, this week. Why? What is it like going on the road you really appreciate?
Yeah, it's different. First off, we've played a lot of home games, a lot of games at Arrowhead, which we love. But getting a new challenge, new opportunity to go out there and see what we can do. That as well as when you're on the road. I mean, obviously Chiefs Kingdom travels, but everybody's against you, and you got to go out there and come together as a team and find a way to win. And it's just a whole new opportunity for you to go out there and see what you're really about.
You talked about Rashid a lot. He said he feels more comfortable identifying man or so faster now. Just from a processing standpoint, how do you see him grow?
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten a lot better. I mean, every single week he continues to get better and better. He's learned from the early mistakes that he's made and doesn't make them again. He learns from the right guys, if that's 11 or if that's 87. He stays with them, asks the right questions, and he asks the coaches the right questions. And so he's done a great job throughout the entire season, and it seems like the bigger the game, the more plays he makes.
You got a little different perspective on this, but that's more what you thought of the job at Steve Spagnuolo and stuff.
No, I mean, he's done a great job his entire time here. I mean, he's really done a great job everywhere he's been. I mean, he always coaches the defense up and he gets guys going in the right direction. I mean, he has a track record as one of the best defensive coordinators of all time in the Super Bowls that he's won at that defensive coordinator spot. And this year, I think, has really magnified it with how they've really carried us to get to this point and done a great job of being able to make in-game adjustments. I think that's a huge thing, and he's really good at making those adjustments, coming out and finishing the game the right way. And so I said it in training camp, and I've said it all year long. I'm glad I don't have to go up against those guys.
Travis mentioned resting the 18 is giving him a little bit more energy. Have you noticed any extra juice now that he was able to have those 2 weeks in a row?
I don't even know if it was the rest or if it's just playoffs. I mean, he's played in so many playoff games now. I think, obviously the regular season is very important and he wants to do really good, but it's just like the playoffs is a different intensity. And I think he likes that. He likes playing the big games and going up against the best. And that's what makes him so special in the playoffs, is that he's able to make his game even rise another level, which you don't see. I mean, he's already at the top, and to rise another level is that's what the special players do. And I'm just glad he's on my team. He makes my job a lot easier, being able to throw him the ball in those big moments.
That is some of Patrick Mahomes and his comments from earlier today at One Arrowhead Drive. This is pretty cool that we're finally getting Mahomes and Lamar in a playoff game. Like, we've gotten Mahomes and Allen. Obviously, we've gotten 3 playoff matchups between those two. We've got 2 great ones between Mahomes and Burrow. But before those guys were MVPs, Lamar Jackson was the MVP. And I think we were, excited at the possibility of a Mahomes-Lamar conference championship game back in 2019, and then that never developed because Baltimore lost early that year. But we finally get Mahomes and Lamar, and this is a matchup of multi-time MVPs. A lot of people want to talk about Mahomes and Allen like it's Brady Manning, but both Brady and Manning won MVPs. Where's Josh Allen's MVP? Where's Joe Burrow's MVP? Lamar's about to win number 2. That's level pegging with Patrick Mahomes. So I'm excited to see these 2 guys in a playoff matchup, and I'd be willing to bet it won't be the last one either. That's going to wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk. It's going to do it for me on the show today. I'm going to head out to Seaman High School for the Capital City Classic girls basketball tournament. Our coverage begins at 5 p.m. tonight on our Lewis Toyota High School basketball games of the week here on 580 WIBW. Brendan Dworzinski will join Spencer for the final hour of the show. They'll start things off with headlines, including the Falcons. They've got their new head coach. It's not Bill Belichick. We'll tell you who next hour, plus what is wrong with you, and CJ Moore for our Big 12 basketball breakdown. That's all coming up in the third and final hour of this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk.
now, 4 o'clock and final hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski here with you for the first time all day, both on 580 AM, 104.9 FM online at 580WIBW.com, and also on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube stream, live from Gross Coliseum, beautiful Hayes, America. Today on the road, Dana's getting ready for some high school hoops coming up today. Our Lewis Toyota high school basketball games of the day, with a whole weekend full of great high school hoops coming up on 580 WIBW from the Cap City Classic up at Seaman High School in North Topeka. So Dan is there. Our coverage will begin right at 5 o'clock today as soon as we are done with the shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk. Yours truly is live from Gross Memorial Coliseum in Hayes, though. Some Washburn basketball coming up today. Players taking the floor, getting warmed up right now. 5:15 broadcast start time, 5:30 tip-off time on our sister station, Country 106.9, for Washburn Hoops versus Fort Hays State. And Spencer, you're still around, hey? You're the only one who has gotten to be anchored down so far in the show today.
Yeah, definitely got some news pouring in here as we begin our headline segment.
Yeah, why don't we just dive right in? Coming up in this final hour of the show, 4 o'clock hour from today, we will get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines, a bunch to get to today from the coaching world. We'll touch on those here, including the latest news in just a second. We've also got today's What Is Wrong With You, and we'll hear from CJ Moore, our Big 12 breakdown insider from The Athletic. He is going to join us coming up in just a little bit. But Spencer, you're right. Let's dive right on into today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. And boy, are there some big ones, including one that just broke within the last few moments, if I'm not mistaken. May have been a little bit earlier. I've been driving all day, so my timing is a little bit off. But the
broke about 10 minutes ago.
Just now. Well, there you go. Perfect. Right on time then. The Atlanta Falcons have their new coach. It is Raheem Morris, the longtime, well-traveled defensive coordinator, most recently with the Los Angeles Rams. He is heading to Atlanta, former head coach in Tampa Bay as well, went to K-State. This is an intriguing hire to me, Spencer. I was just on my way in. I was listening to some podcasts on the way in to Hayes today, long road trip from Topeka out here to Western Kansas. And I was listening to a thought, and they brought up that, and I don't know if you've heard this before, since the start of 2022, the end of the 2021 season, every single team in the NFL has changed offensive coordinators. Every single one of them, now that Brian Callahan is moving on to become the head coach of the Tennessee Titans and is leaving the Cincinnati Bengals. So there's all this change, all this turnover. And the point that these hosts of the show were trying to bring up was that's a major reason why you would want to go with an offensive-minded head coach as opposed to the defensive-minded head coach. Because then your offensive scheme, you don't have to change all sorts of different things year for year. The same scheme, the same basics, the same structure, that's all in place. Kind of interesting, in my opinion, for Atlanta, which looks like it's got the potential to be built as an offensive program. When you look at the fact that they've got a young running back in Bijan Robinson, a decent to above average offensive line, Kyle Pitts at tight end, Drake London is your number one receiver. That feels like a team that, and I know this is easier said than done, is a quarterback away from being far more competitive. Kind of interesting to me that they would go with someone with such a defensive pedigree.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that, but yeah, he's got connections to Atlanta. He was their interim head coach in 2020.
True.
The biggest thing to me about this is most likely, unless out of left field, he becomes a candidate for the Commander's job, or I'm not sure if he's interviewed in Seattle, but I don't think so. Bill Belichick is going to get shut out of this coaching cycle after he said he wanted another challenge.
Yeah, I'm both shocked, but also not, because of all the things we've already talked about, right? The fact that he's 72 years old or 71 years old. It's either 1 year older or 1 year younger or about the same age as Pete Carroll. I know he's into his early 70s. Do you trust that guy is going to be around long term to be able to usher your franchise into its next era, a more successful era? And if you're one of these teams that just let go of their head coach, say for Seattle, you're looking to get into that more, that more successful time period, era, whatever you want to end up calling it. So do you trust him age-wise? And also, are you bringing in Matt Patricia then? Are you bringing in Joe Judge? Are you bringing in Josh McDaniels and all these other has-beens, also rants, never wers, that have been on that coaching staff that have failed in New England over the last couple of years? I don't know that I would personally want that. So maybe it ends up being Washington. I still think it's going to be Ben Johnson who ends up there. But we're starting to run out of chairs here, and the music is about to stop. Yeah, so we're short on jobs unless there's some other kind of crazy change. And I can't see Belichick in Seattle. I, again, don't think he's going to end up in Washington. I think that's Ben Johnson's job to lose. So I'm sure, again, both surprised because it's Bill Belichick is maybe the greatest coach of all time, but also not surprised because, well, there's a lot of factors why you might not want to bring him in right now.
Yeah, I mean, back to Raheem Morris getting this job, I think it's interesting he gets another shot at being a head coach because he's coached three full seasons in Tampa, and then he coached for 11 games as the interim in Tampa, and then in Atlanta in 2020 he coached 11 games. He is 21-38 as a head coach in the NFL with one 10-win season. That's 2010, and he still finished third in the NFC South that season, around a 3-win season to begin his career in Tampa, and then to end it he went 4-12, and then 4-7 in the interim time that he was interim head coach in Atlanta. So it's intriguing that with all the candidates that they had, Vrabel being one of them, I believe they interviewed 14. I saw from one of the pundits in the last 10 minutes. I can't find the tweet now, but they interviewed 14 candidates, and then they came out with Raheem Morris to be their new head coach. That's intriguing to me, a guy who doesn't have great success being a head coach, although only 3 full seasons, so 3.5 seasons being a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, that's good for him. I mean, by all accounts, very smart guy. He does actually come from that Shanahan tree because he was on that staff in Washington that you are obviously so well versed with. He's been with McVay, with Shanahan, with that entire group, that whiz kid play caller group for a really long time. So I'm not surprised he's got the connections. I know he is well respected. I know he is well liked. I just think it's kind of a unique approach that Atlanta is going to take with that hire. While we're on the topic of coaching, let's just get through a bunch of this news today. It broke right before you guys went off the air yesterday. I had already left for the studio to get ready for the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show.
Yeah, we talked about this on the air.
Yeah, that Jim Harbaugh is the new coach of the Chargers. We've got the contract terms as well. At least in part, we have those, and I've got to go pull those up now. Look, this was the obvious outcome. I think this is the team that more than anyone had the best or the most likely opportunity to bring him in, to have him be a part of their program. He's got the connection with the Telescos. It was the last place that he played before he ended up retiring. I think it ends up making a whole lot of sense, and I still think he's a fantastic coach. I think this is a big win for the Chargers. I think it's a big win for Justin Herbert. I think it is for Jim Harbaugh. 5-year deal. Yeah, not a surprise there. I imagine he is going to get an absolute truckload per year in terms of the financials of this contract. But I know you guys, again, mentioned it already on the show yesterday, but I don't think the Chargers could have done any better. And I'm frankly surprised that they ended up paying up for him.
Yeah, I am as well, but he gets a 5-year contract. He did what he wanted to do in college. Now he's going to see if he can actually get to the top of the mountain in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's the one thing at this point that he doesn't have, because he has won everywhere. He won at San Diego as an FCS program. He won at Stanford, won with the 49ers as a national championship. Now, he made the joke post-game, remember, after they had knocked off Washington in the national title game this year, that now I can be at the adults table. My dad has national championship. My brother's got the Super Bowl. Now I've got my national championship as well. I'm going to say he's not going to end up winning a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Chargers, because if you know anything about the history of the Los Angeles Chargers, that's pretty obvious. Yeah. However, you got balls flying all over here. It's warm-ups. It's all a much different environment than the self-contained, sanitized studio where we do the show with players warming up here in Hayes. But overall, I think it's a great fit. I don't think he's going to win a Super Bowl there, but best of luck to him. Other coaching news and notes from today. Let's get to Dave Canales, shall we? The offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And this comes back to that point I was just bringing up a moment ago, Spencer, about when these offensive minds, these guys who have great seasons, who get quarterbacks turned around, they work really well with young quarterbacks, whatever. And for Dave Canales, it was getting Baker Mayfield to look excellent this year. And that Buccaneers team, which was kind of left for dead in an awful division, well, they bounced back and they end up winning that division, and they end up winning a playoff game this year. you lose that right away. So now Tampa Bay, with a coach who you've already heard me say, I am not a Todd Bowles fan by any means, but now you go into a situation, if you are Tampa, where you've got to replace that offensive system again, or at the very least, you promote someone from within who knows if they're good enough for it. And you're good, position coaches, they might just follow Dave Canales to then go to Carolina. So it's an interesting spot to be in. I don't think it's a bad hire by any means. Seems like it's probably a cheap hire if you're David Tepper and you're going to be paying out $30-ish million to a fired Frank Reich over the next few years. I think it's a good hire for Carolina. I don't know if it's going to work out, but again, that is why, and now Canales is one of these guys, you want to keep that offensive continuity in place. So I get it for Carolina, and hey, if they want to make sure that Bryce Young is worth the investment they made with the number 1 overall pick this year, might as well go with an offensive-minded quarterback guru type of coach.
I kind of feel like, this kind of felt out of left field to me. I was talking to Dan about it, in the bullpen earlier out there. And it kind of confused me because they were slated to have their second interview today with Vrabel. They also completed an interview today with another coach. I can't remember who it is. I saw it tweeted by Adam Schefter. With Slowick. Slowick was on their horizon as well. So it's kind of interesting to me that all these moves are being made today with the way that, the hiring or the interview process has gone. It just seems like, and then, another aside on this Panthers job is I feel like Canales kind of came out of left field in this. I was anticipating a bigger name, I guess. I don't think Canales is a huge name. I just feel like I haven't heard him that much in this coaching carousel this year. But also, Dan and I were talking to how unattractive potentially is this job because of the owner and just the way the coaches have been let go after small amounts of time in the last few seasons.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. It's hard to know exactly how much, if you get the offer, if you're Dave Canales, you take the job. It's not like you're willing to hold out because, a great example of a guy who held out and wouldn't take a job, Byron Leftwich, just a couple of years ago. He didn't want to go back to Jacksonville. He didn't want to work with Trent Baalke. That job ends up going to Doug Peterson instead, and they choked down the stretch this year. But for the most part, that's worked out since Doug Peterson took that job. You know what Byron Leftwich is doing right now? Well, no, neither does anybody else. He went from fast rising big name in coaching circles to, oh yeah, remember he's like a remember some guy.
Yeah, he was
at this point.
He was potentially in the running to be the head coach at his alma mater, Marshall, but that didn't work out because he wanted to stay with the Buccaneers. But be interesting to see where he winds up if he can get back in this year because the Bucs positioning now. Do they kind of maybe bring him back? Maybe.
Certainly possible. He knows Todd Bowles quite well. What about you, Spencer? That covers a lot of the coaching news from today. What's your first headline for us?
I want, instead of a headline, you weren't here yesterday. I want to get your take on the Joe Barry firing because I know you're a beloved Packers fan.
Yeah, it needed to happen. And I was thinking about this in the morning yesterday after the news broke that I feel bad. You don't want to celebrate someone losing their job. That's not ever something positive that you want to take joy in. And by all accounts, great guy, all of that, etc. But as I have said for many years, and many people have said this in many different contexts, if the first thing you say when you ask, well, how good is this person at their job? If you say, well, he's a nice guy, then they're not good enough at their job. Because if they were good enough at it, that would be the first thing you bring up, the excellence they have at doing said job. That's not Joe Barry. His coverage schemes, poor. Packers have absolutely no idea how to run fit, how to stop the run period. It's the same thing year after year after year. And the Packers need to do something new. And it's the time for that franchise, which calls itself Title Town. Green Bay, Wisconsin calls itself Title Town. It's not division Title Town. It is Super Bowl and NFL championship Title Town. And if you want to win a Super Bowl, you can't have a defense that is that porous, that is that weak, and that is going to lose in the same fashion week after week, year after year. You can't do it. And now if you believe you've got young pieces defensively you can win with, you've got an offense that you have belief in that you think you can win with a young quarterback who is probably going to get a massive extension this year, then yeah, I think it was the move that had to be done. There was a report too from ESPN. I think Adam Schefter had this. Rob Domofsky added to it too, that maybe they keep Joe Barry on staff. I mean, so what? If they do, that's bizarre. Fine, I guess. But no, it was the right move. It was the right time. Frankly, last year was the right time to move on from Joe Barry, but I'm not upset by any means. Best of luck to him. No ill will toward him as a person, but I never want to see him coach one of my favorite football teams ever again. I will certainly leave it at that. I hope I never see him coaching one of my favorite teams again.
Yeah, and another headline I got for you is the AP has come out with their finalists for MVP Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL. Lamar Jackson, McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, their finalists for both MVP and Offensive Player of the Year awards. Bills quarterback Josh Allen and Brock Purdy, they're finalists for the MVP, and then Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb are the two other finalists for Offensive Player of the Year. Interesting that we've got that duo of Prescott as an Offensive Player of the Year candidate and CeeDee Lamb, and then obviously that he's up there as a third finalist for the AP player or MVP and Player of the Year.
Yeah, all of that firepower, all of that talent. Do you remember, Spencer, how many playoff games the Cowboys won this year with all that talent?
0.
Zero, as a big fat zero. And I know both you and I in particular take a whole lot of pleasure in saying that. Yeah, I'm not entirely surprised by any of this. It is, to bounce back to something we were talking about on the show yesterday when it comes to QB1, Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's crazy that we have a year in which Mahomes is not even considered top 5 for Offensive Player of the Year, for MVP voting. But I think we all at the same time are very ready to admit this was not his best year. In fact, it was nowhere close to his best year. But still, all of these guys that we have listed here, your candidates for Offensive Player of the Year, for MVP, who are you trusting more? Any of them or Patrick Mahomes when it comes to a conference championship game or it comes to trying to win a Super Bowl? Who are you taking? It's Mahomes every single time.
Yeah.
So that's not to disparage Lamar Jackson, who I think has been awesome, not to disparage Christian McCaffrey, who's the best running back in the NFL. Dak obviously had a great regular season, even though it didn't end up meaning anything in the long run. But it's just kind of amazing to talk about that kind of pedigree that Patrick Mahomes has, where to a degree he's almost bigger than the MVP award at this point. Did any of these surprise you? Any of these groups of 5 finalists?
CeeDee Lamb a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I think he led the NFL in catches this year, did he not?
Yeah, I guess so. I think he was up there, but I don't know.
He's
it's
a Cowboy.
Yeah,
they always get a lot of attention.
Yeah, that just surprised me. There could have been somebody else in there. I don't. Maybe Debo at some point. I don't know. I just wasn't expecting him to be the final candidate.
No, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And I think a number of these are going to end up being, I don't want to say fairly obvious, but Lamar's going to win MVP. I am of the belief that when a quarterback wins an MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year award should go to a position player. I think of it like, people have made this comparison before, but I think of it like the Cy Young and the MVP in Major League Baseball, where Cy Young is for pitchers, but if they have a great season, they still have the ability to win the MVP. I think MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year award should be the same thing. I think OPOY should go to a skill position player because they have such a hard chance of making the MVP, of being an MVP finalist, let alone winning the award. But if you have an otherworldly season like Christian McCaffrey has had, I think you should be able to receive both. I just don't think quarterbacks should be able to receive both.
Yeah, I
one more headline.
I think Tyreek Hill,
Spencer.
if Tyreek Hill was able to get 2K, I think he would have been a very strong candidate for Player of the Year, but I just don't think that he's going to get it this year because he didn't get the 2K.
No, I think you're 100% right about that. One more headline from me. Did you guys talk earlier in the show about Kayshon Boutte, the former LSU, current New England Patriots wide receiver?
Did not know, but I think I saw it on Twitter. I didn't read into it though, but I think I did see it.
It is insane. And I'm reading the writing of ESPN News Services here, but this has been all over the place. Patriots wide receiver Kayshon Boutte was arrested Thursday in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, over allegations of illegal sports betting while he played at LSU. Louisiana State Police say the charges against the 21-year-old Boutte include a felony count of computer fraud and misdemeanor count of gambling prohibited for persons under 21. The investigation is still ongoing. How about this? Investigators assigned by the Louisiana State Police Gaming Enforcement Division found that Boutte bet on sports between April of 2022 and May of 2023 when he was just 20 years old. He allegedly used an alias to get around the age requirement for placing sports wagers. He placed nearly 9,000 wagers in 13 months. 8,900 bets in 13 months, barely over a year. Only 17
That's
of them
crazy.
ended up being on NCAA football games, 6 of which he actually bet on LSU. And to make it even worse, Spencer, 2 of those he bet on himself. In a part of a parlay, he bet on himself to score an anytime touchdown and to go over his receiving yards. How dumb can you be? There's also
Shaking
a
my
report
head.
out there, and I haven't seen this confirmed yet. His username on, I believe it was FanDuel, was Kayshawn Booty 01. He used his own name. This is outrageous. And I hope he gets help, because this is clearly a sign of like degeneracy and addiction to a degree that I have a hard time imagining. That's on average, Spencer, betting almost 22 times a day, every single day for 13 months.
That is
crazy.
insane. Yeah.
Including, and if you're betting 8,900 times and only 17 of them are on NCAA football, what else is, like, it's got to be a lot of NBA and college basketball, right?
Probably.
Like, is he staying up? And Vance in YouTube says, now that's a what is wrong with you. I almost switched my story and made this my what is wrong with you for today. Like, this is just otherworldly. Is he up late, like betting Australian, T20 cricket? It's just, it is absurd. I had to bring that up, though, because I saw that while I was pumping gas on my way out here to Hayes earlier today. Could not believe that story. 20 years, dude, just wait 1 year, move out, and you're going to be just fine. Incredibly stupid by the young Patriots wide receiver. That's going to do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. We've got What Is Wrong With You coming up on the other side of this break, and then CJ Moore of The Athletic will join us at the end of the hour. That's all coming up in this final hour of a shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk? Before we get to our Big 12 breakdown with CJ Moore of The Athletic coming up here in just a moment. Got to get through this quickly. As always, What is Wrong with You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications, saving you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to your metal with Top City Metal Supply, located on South Topeka Boulevard in between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Spencer, we've got the same winner for the week as we've had all week long. It is our gentleman who went to an elementary school open house with a gun in the waistband of his sweatpants, and then he was playing basketball at the school and shot himself in the leg. He did the Plaxico Burress. We've got 2 news stories today. Why don't you go first with yours, Spencer?
All right. Florida man accused of trying to steal used cooking oil in Martin County, Florida. A Miami man was arrested on the Treasure Coast Tuesday and accused of trying to steal something most people would be happy to give away. The sheriff's department there in Martin County said Yadrell Zagora was part of a group working to steal used cooking oil from restaurants. The chief deputy said, quote, "That's a $5 billion business, so there's a lot of money in it. The restaurant seller used cooking oil to recycling companies who then turn it into fuel, among other things." But said that same oil can go for 65 cents a pound on the black market. And he said that's why it's becoming more common for thieves to try and steal it. In the case of Zagorza, investigators said they followed him as he stopped at about 20 restaurants along Federal Highway in Stewart on Tuesday, inspecting their containers of used oil. Quote, "We saw that that he was sending a pin to another person saying how much oil was in each container and where the container was located. Investigators believe the plan was to come back later, siphon the oil out of the containers. One of the restaurants targeted was a seafood eatery. The owner called the crime disturbing and said she believes she now has to worry about guarding her cooking oil." That's basically the story. He was already on probation after being accused of stealing cooking oil in Monroe County. So he seems to be a serial cooking oil stealer, allegedly.
That's bizarre. Yeah, that's bizarre. I'm going to be completely honest with you. That is one of the more bizarre thefts that we've had on What is Wrong with You. My story today is going to take us across the country from Florida. We're going to Colorado. Usually it takes about an hour and 10 minutes to drive from Colorado Springs to Denver. Well, one gentleman named Rendon Dietzman decided he wanted to do it in 20 minutes. So he drove over 170 miles an hour on a motorcycle between Colorado Springs and Denver and recorded the entire thing. By the way, you may be able to pick up on this. That is extremely illegal, along with extremely dangerous. And not only did he record the entire thing, Spencer, he also put the whole thing on YouTube, along with many other videos of him stunting and speeding. There is now a warrant out for his arrest. He has been taunting police online, by the way, now that he knows there is a warrant out for his arrest. The charges against him include menacing, engaging in a speed contest, reckless endangerment, reckless driving, speeding 40-plus miles per hour over the limit, engaged in an exhibition of speed, and a vehicle with no plate numbers attached. So it's a pretty simple one. This guy is wanted for driving 173 miles an hour on a motorcycle between Colorado Springs and Denver. And I think, Spencer, that's the one I'm going to go with, because one of my tiebreakers is usually when you're harming other people and screwing up their day. I'm going to lean with those stories. And while our cooking oil thief is bizarre, I think I got to go with this guy who was going 173 on an interstate.
And then What is Wrong with You more into it is he posted on YouTube. I agree with you.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So we're on agreement there. Does that take down the guy who shot himself playing basketball at the elementary school open house?
That does not take down the guy that Plexico burst himself.
You know, you say it out loud like that, and you think, no, there's no way this story is getting toppled. So that, once again, is our winner in What is Wrong with You, the guy who shot himself at the elementary school open house. The winner today in What is Wrong with You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. CJ Moore of The Athletic joins us next for the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Working to get CJ Moore on the line. It is the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzynski, Spencer Dupuis here with you. Although here is a relative term. Spencer is back home in the 580 studios on Huntoon Hill. Yours truly is at Gross Memorial Coliseum in beautiful Hayes, America. Getting ready for some Washburn basketball tonight. Tip-off at 5:30 for game one of our doubleheader. Pre-game coverage for our doubleheader will begin at 5:15 over on Country 106.9. A couple of really fun games coming up today. Washburn off that big win over Pitt State last time out on Saturday afternoon. 11-6 on the year, taking on top 20 Fort Hays State, number 19 in the country in the latest WBCA polls. Meanwhile, it'll be high school basketball action coming up on 580 WIBW a little bit later on tonight with Dan Lucero. But right now, we're going to talk about the D1 college game as we have CJ Moore on the line. CJ covers all things college basketball for The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops. And, of course, make sure you go subscribe to The Athletic for all the best coverage of all things college hoops. CJ, I'm going to ask you a repeat of a question we asked you 2 weeks ago when we had you on the show. Why, oh, why is it still so hard for teams to win games on the road in this conference? It doesn't matter how good the opponent is, how bad the opponent is. KU has now lost to both UCF and West Virginia on the road. Is it becoming even more mysterious or even more difficult possibly to win some of these road games?
Oh, it's not just the Big 12. I think it's happening everywhere. And I think part of it in the Big 12 this year is I don't think there's a dominant, elite team. The past few years, like you look at Baylor and Kansas, most of the, majority of those years, and they've had teams that could, a couple that won the national title, like some elite teams. I don't know that there is an elite team in the Big 12 this year. I think there's a lot of really good teams. And, I look at the conference standings right now, and I think everybody except for West Virginia and Oklahoma State probably have a chance to make the NCAA tournament. And West Virginia, if they were healthy and whole the whole year, who knows? They might be one of those teams that you would consider on that mix. So there's just so much parity in the league this year. I think more than there's ever been because usually there's a top, a middle, and a bottom. And the bottom's usually pretty decent. I don't know that there's a top this year. I just think there's a huge middle.
One team that I want to talk to you about, CJ, before we get to our local programs here, I wanted to ask about Houston, which has now dropped a couple of games. We know Houston is extremely well coached by Kelvin Sampson. They've got plenty of talent. They're going to be a contender come March to be a second weekend, possibly Final Four, maybe national championship kind of team. But when you see them lose back-to-back games early in Big 12 play, and I think TCU is actually going to be pretty good this year. I like that TCU team a lot. I like Jamie Dixon a lot. Do you think when you see a moment like that from Houston, that's more so just that parity across college basketball that you're talking about, and there's just this gigantic middle class? Or do you think that's more kind of a welcome to the Big 12 moment, specifically speaking for a program like that? But I think really all the newcomers have had something like that this year.
I mean, both. I think it was both. I think it was
sure
welcome to the Big 12 and kind of how the schedule set up for them. And, I say they're not elite, but they are number one at KenPom. But I do think they've had a way of tricking the computers a little bit because what Houston's been really good at for years now is beating up on, teams that aren't that good, like crushing them. Similar deal with what, why Auburn's ranked so high in the computers right now, like just crushing teams that they're better than. So I think Houston's a pretty good team, but number one at KenPom, are they the best team in the country? I don't think so, but KenPom's pretty reliable in those kinds of things. But this is one where I wouldn't believe what that site says right now.
CJ Moore, our guest of the Big 12 for the Big 12 breakdown of The Athletic. And CJ, you touched on it a little bit in the first one. West Virginia, an interesting case study this season. Obviously, everything that happened preseason, dating back to the end of last season. Are they getting into their own right now, or are they just randomly winning big games?
It looks kind of random right now, right? It'll be interesting to see what they look like when they are completely whole, because they're still not. Like Jesse Edwards hasn't returned yet, and he's missed, I think it's 10 games or something now. and he was one of the guys that we had in the top 10 of the transfer portal. I mean, he was a pretty good player at Syracuse last year, like a borderline all-league guy. So when they get him back, it'll be fascinating because I think they'll have 3 pretty high-level starters in the Big 12 with him, Raekwon Battle, and Kirk Kriisa, who was at Arizona. But it's hard to say like what they can be before he gets back. But at the same time, like I just don't think they have the depth as most of the really good teams have in this league. But they're still on their home court with a guy like Battle, who we saw what he could do against Kansas on any given night. Like they can still top up and probably beat about anybody in the league.
Chatting with CJ Moore of The Athletic. It's the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. CJ, the Kansas Jayhawks, let's get there right away. And there have been some really impressive moments so far and a couple surprising losses, the ones we've already mentioned, UCF and West Virginia. But I wanted to ask you about Johnny Furphy because I'm sure I'm about the 1,800,000th person to have asked you about the Australian sensation already this week. How impressed have you been by his production, especially on the offensive end, since he stepped into the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think it's been promising for Kansas just because it was getting absolutely nothing out of that starter spot. And he's been pretty dang good for the most part outside of that like second half against West Virginia. I think he's played well. I think defensively, it's a little scary for the Jayhawks at times when he's out there. Like teams are hunting him and picking on him, kind of like they did with Grady Dick a year ago. But he's fairly athletic and he moves his feet decent for a guy his size and as young as he is. And but yeah, just to be inserted in the lineup and make some shots, like that's really, really what they needed. And just to help the other guys in terms of floor spacing and not to have so much attention on Hunter Dickinson, I think is a big thing. So I think it's huge for Kansas, like the rest of the way. Like if they want to be a team that actually has a chance to win a national title, then they need to get Johnny Furphy from. I don't think he has to score 23 the other night, but he's got to be a guy that can make shots and play with the kind of confidence he played with the other day against Cincinnati.
With Furphy on the floor, then, with some of those defensive struggles that have come with him so far, and knowing that Hunter Dickinson is not unplayable defensively, he's also not exactly an elite defender in the post. You've got good defense from the other 3 in that 5-man group. Is that enough defensively for KU to achieve their biggest goals this year?
I honestly think one of the biggest needs for them on the defensive end right now is for the bench to give them some minutes. Like I think that DeJuan Harris, KJ, Kevin, Hunter Dickinson, I think they're all playing so many minutes and that there's such a need for them to produce on the offensive end that it's probably wearing them out and they're probably saving themselves a little bit on the defensive end. And I think, you have to play with a different level of intensity on that end to have success in this league. And I just don't think they're playing with that intensity right now. And I think a big part of it is just, just trying to stay on the floor.
Is McDowell a guy who can do a little bit of that? Because I know coming into this year, there was not a whole lot expected of him, but with such little depth, he's had to play more. And I like the energy. I think you can see the vision with Jamari McDowell, even if he's far, far from a complete product right now. Do you think he can be that guy who, at least in little spurts, can give you some kind of perimeter defense? Or is he such a work in progress that you really have to rely on the others?
Yeah, I just don't think there's the trust element there from Bill Self to play him on a regular basis. And so he would have to progress to get to that spot. It's going to have to be, they need Marco Jackson to be able to give them 15 to 20 quality minutes every game. Nick Timberlake, they need him to, be reliable when he's out there and not be a guy that the leash is really short where, anytime he makes a mistake, Self wants to pull him. And I just think it's a little bit of a flawed roster. Like, there's been times where Parker Brown's looked okay, but I just think that, where they messed up a little bit is in building this bench. And, it was a team that figured they were going to have Arterion Morris, and that probably changes the math a little bit. And obviously Kansas has a much better, clear, easier rotation if he's part of it, and or if they had gotten a player that could have stayed on the roster and was at his level, I think it's a lot easier to kind of put these pieces in spots where they make sense. But I think that's when Bill Self will get done with this season and look back on it. I think not having the depth and reliable bench guys is something he'll regret.
Let's flip over to the Kansas State side of things here, CJ. And Cats coming off of a loss last night. Not a pretty game by any means. In fact, I would argue an extremely ugly basketball game against Iowa State up at Hilton Coliseum last night. But overall for this K-State team, stacking wins early in the year, 4-2 through 6 games in conference play. Can't be too upset about that. I know you don't like playing the, pick and predict who's going to make the tournament game, but does this K-State team right now, flaws, positives, all that together, does this feel like a team that should make a tournament run this season? A run to the tournament, I mean.
I think I'll have a better feel for it in a couple of weeks. I still think it's early.
Sure.
I think they've done they're off to the kind of start in the Big 12 that they needed to be to have a chance. And, they now have, I'd say 2 signature resume wins. The Baylor win at home, but that was at home. And then the Villanova win also at home. But, Villanova is ultimately going to be like a bubble team. Providence on a neutral probably was going to look pretty good, but Providence lost their best player. I don't even think they probably don't even make the NCAA tournament. So you're still kind of lacking some quality wins there. And so it's going to be really important to do well in the Big 12, but they're off to a pretty good start. But if you look at Ken Palm projections, for instance, which you can't take that as gospel, but right now he has K-State going 9-9 in the league. That would put them like square right on the bubble. I think that'd be a team that would be talked about as like last 4 in or last 4 out. And I know bracketology stuff has already started. I haven't even looked. I don't like looking at bracketology stuff, but I think that if they're 9-9, that's one of those teams that'll be looked at as one of the last 4 in or out.
What do you think of David Gasson and his development so far? And I know there's still a long way to go this season and a lot to still figure out. And I think you could argue he's not even one of the 3 most important players on this team. You've got Kaluma and Perry, and you throw Cam Carter and his development in there as well. But from what you've seen of Gasson and where he is now this year relative to where he was in late January a year ago, what do you make of the way he's developed?
Yeah, I think he's just like a solid piece for them. My biggest takeaway visiting them in the preseason, like they're going to be a really, really good defensive team, and that's what they got to lean on. What has been surprising is, I think they've offensively maybe gotten off to even a little bit better start than I thought they would in Big 12 play, but they're still kind of middle of the pack. But their defense has been really good. Like they're second best in conference games and their defensive rating. So he's a really nice switchable piece that can give them a little playmaking on the perimeter from like the 4 or 5 spot. And I think he's for the most part playing to his abilities. Like he's never going to be a guy that steps up and makes a bunch of threes or anything like that. But I think he's a glue guy for them and has just kind of grown in that role.
All right, CJ, last thing we've got for you outside, it could include the Big 12, but speaking from a national perspective here, outside of the usual suspects, Kansas and UConn and Purdue and the teams that were expected to be good to great this year, what's a team that maybe is flying a little bit under the radar, whether it's in the top 25 somewhere else nationally, that you feel like has really impressed you so far this season?
Well, last night I watched Auburn lose at Alabama, and they yet to have a signature win. But that's a team that I think is pretty dang good and could go on a long run in the NCAA tournament. I usually don't love teams that like play a bunch of dudes, and I'm usually about like you play your best guys the most minutes, right? And you just kind of use your bench to give them rest at the right times. But Auburn just kind of overwhelms you with depth and wears you down. So I've been impressed with them. I think they're a team that was probably either not ranked or ranked really low early in the year that I think is, probably a top 10 quality team. And so that'd probably be my answer right now.
CJ Moore covers all things college basketball for The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter as well at CJ Moore Hoops. He joins us every Thursday at this time for our Big 12 breakdown on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We appreciate the time as always, CJ. Enjoy the Hoops weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
That's CJ Moore from The Athletic. We owe you one more timeout. We'll come on back, wrap up 580 Sports Talk right after this on 580 WIBW. We've got to go warp speed for today's final word. So, Spencer, take it away.
I'm going to jump on your train tonight just because I don't have a lot to do. American East basketball, I guess. That's what we're going to do tonight.
That's right. America East Thursday. All the picks are on Twitter for those of you degenerates out there who want to jump on. Not you, Keyshawn Booty. You can't be a part of that. Final word for me today. Kind of a surprising day from NFL coaching circles to go with Raheem Morris, the defensive-minded coach for an offensively loaded roster in Atlanta. Dave Canales, kind of out of nowhere as the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Sometimes going off the board is the right thing. We've seen the Lions are a perfect example of that. But we'll find out if the cheaper moves for those two franchises end up paying off. We're done today on 580 Sports Talk. Coming up just in a couple minutes at the top of the hour, we've got the Capital City Classic coverage from Seaman High School. Dan Lucero and Larry Latimer on the call. Flip on over to Country 106.9 as well for coverage of Washburn basketball beginning in just 15 minutes. For Dan Lucero, for Spencer Dupuy, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Appreciate you listening to 580 Sports Talk.